After the age of 18, I left Suriname, the country where I was born, to study here at the university in Holland. Many people in the colonies or the former colonies usually go to the motherland, the former colonial power, to study there. I had to communicate a lot of messages that other people invented or thought of, like McKinsey and company. And so I had to communicate what they came up with. And then there was one professor that I met, professor in futurology, and he said, you have more talent. You are better than communicating other people's messages. You can think of your own messages because you have a talent to envision the future. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in an academic way, in a scientific way. He like adopted me, and all his knowledge and all his way of how to study the future, how to discern the trends which are going on behind today's headlines.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Diaspora Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Adjiedj Bakas. He's from the Indian Diaspora in Suriname and Netherlands, and he's an author and a futurist who has written more than 43 books, many of which have turned bestsellers. We are so excited to have somebody from Suriname and Netherlands, Indian Diaspora. Ajit, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Raul, for inviting me. I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. We just skipped to winter time here in Holland, so we have
Yeah.
an hour extra to sleep. So that is nice.
And, in that hour you gave us time, we are delighted.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought about what we should talk about.
Sure. So I introduce you, sir, you as an author, as a
Yeah.
futurist. Talk to us more about that identity of yours.
Well, I studied mass communications and marketing at a Dutch university here in the city of Utrecht. After the age of 18, I left Suriname, the country where I was born, to study here at the university in Holland. Many people in the colonies or the former colonies usually go to the motherland, the former colonial power, to study there. A lot of Surinamese people are educated here in Holland. So I was educated here at the university. I graduated, and then I had to communicate a lot of messages that other people invented or thought of, like McKinsey and company. And so I had to communicate what they came up with. And then there was one professor that I met, a futurist, a professor in futurology, and he said, you have more talent. You are better than communicating other people's messages. You can think of your own messages because you have a talent to envision the future. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in an academic way, in a scientific way. So he gave me a private education for a couple of years, a private tutorial. And in fact, he like adopted me, and all his knowledge and all his way of how to study the future, how to discern the trends which are going on behind today's headlines, and how to get into the bigger picture. And he learned that to me, and he learned me also how to write it. And so I wrote these books. And some of the books I wrote alone, some with a co-author that was first the professor, later also with my husband. I wrote this book about how we can use the megatrends to become happy, and we call that the economy of happiness, or the happinomy.
Lovely. I love that because all of us are facing so much of noise today. There is information overload, and to be able to detach from that and to be able to see the future for or your own good, for your business, for the nation, I think that's a superpower that
But all
uh,
this, all this noise, we are so enslaved to our phone. We are looking at a still phone. It is
yeah,
like visual heroin, and so we are like addicted to it like heroin. So I think we should. That's
yeah,
why I leave alone my phone a lot of the time. So now it's out, so that I cannot see it. Nobody can call me. Nobody can app me. Nobody can.
yeah,
So it is out, and it is because I want to focus on talking with you.
yeah. That just be present. I love that. Now, Ajit, let's go to your childhood.
Yeah,
I believe you were born in Suriname.
right.
Is that right? Talk
Yeah.
to us about your growing years in Suriname and
Well,
the Indian community in that country?
well, in the Caribbean there are 2.5 million people of Indian origin. In Suriname there are about, I think, 300,000, and in Holland also 300,000. And Suriname and Guyana are the only countries in the Caribbean who have a president who is of Indian origin. So they are led by a leader who is of Indian origin.
Hmm.
And the first Indian immigrants came to the Caribbean after the abolition of slavery. And
Hmm.
then the blacks did not want to work on the plantations anymore. So Holland made a deal with England and said, look, you are ruling India. There are a lot of Indians who don't have enough land there, who don't have enough opportunities. If we can get permission of you to recruit some Indians to come to work on the plantations in Suriname. And then, if you give us that permission, we give you our colony of Ghana in Africa. So
Hmm.
that's how Ghana in Africa became from British, became Dutch. And then they went, so the lots of people went from Suriname from 1873 till the 1940, till the Second World War, and they worked on the plantations. And in the west of Suriname, near the border with Guyana, there are the rice plantations. So a lot of
Hmm.
rice is growing there. So it's the rice basket of the Caribbean. And the rice there is exported to the whole Caribbean and to Holland and to England and everywhere. And the Indians came, so my family, first my great-grandparents and my grandparents worked on the rice plantation. And after 5 years, because they signed a contract for 5 years, and after 5 years they could choose return to India for free, stay on another contract for 5 years on the plantation, or they got a free piece of land and could start their own farm.
Hmm.
So, well, my ancestors started their own farm, and it became bigger and bigger and bigger, and they exported all their vegetables and so to the Caribbean. So it was very, very successful. And so they are. So I came from a farmer's family, but I'm a symbol of aging. My grandmother had 14 children, my mother 3. I have a dog. And but my mother became so because Indian people always send their kids to school. So my
Hmm.
grandparents wanted their children to be educated, so they became. So my mother became a teacher. She
Hmm.
met in a school where she met my father. They fell in love, and
Hmm.
despite the fact that they were of different religion, they said, "Look, we love each other. Let's try it." And so they tried, and they married, and then they moved from Nikeri, that was that rural area, to the
Mhm.
city, to the capital, to Paramaribo. And I was 3 years old when I moved to Paramaribo, and I got my education there till the age of 18. And
Hmm.
Suriname, after independence, it did not go well. It became independent in 1975. In
Okay.
1980, there was a military coup, and
Hmm.
so the military became the boss, and it was a dictatorship. And then it became a bit complicated. And
Hmm.
then after the military coup, my parents decided to send me away to Holland. To said it's safer for you there, and my mother also said, look, because she knew I was gay, and she says, look, as a gay man, you will be much happier in Holland than in
Hmm.
Suriname, because here in this community with a lot of social control, and in the Indian culture, usually also in the diaspora, is not very positive
Hmm.
towards homosexuality. So she says,
Hmm.
go to Holland, and I became very happy in Holland. So
Hmm.
I studied here. I met my first husband. I was
Hmm.
happy with him for 8 years,
Hmm.
and after he died of cancer, I met a couple of years later my second husband. I was happy with him. 25 years, so he died too on the same day as my first husband. So it's very strange what the cosmos is doing to us. But look, for 8 plus 25 years, so total of 33 years, I
Hmm.
experienced love. So I'm very thankful to the
Yeah.
cosmos and to the gods that, well, at least I have that. Because many people never experience love in their life, but I had it.
Yeah.
I'm very happy and thankful for that. And
Yeah.
so now I live with my doggy, and I'm very happy, and with my art, because I collect art. That is, you can see that here. So in the back, you can see this old Indian
Yeah.
painting,
Yeah.
and there's modern glass of a Czech artist, and then you see this ivory from Africa.
Yeah.
So it is all different kinds. So I love art, and there's a
Yeah.
British study that says looking at art and looking at beauty makes
Mm.
people as happy as love. It is the same point in your brains which is triggered by looking at beauty and looking at art. That's why I love art. I surround myself with beauty and art.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. That's the first time I'm hearing this, and it makes sense. Every time I'm in love with the Himalayas, the mountains,
Yeah,
and I have a beautiful painting of Nepalese foothills, mountains of Himalayas. Every time I look at it, there's
you become happy.
a serotonin rush happening in me. I turn happier. That's
Yeah,
a great insight,
and you
Ajit.
get a smile on your face. That is so.
Yeah, yeah,
We should do everything that puts a smile on our face and that makes a and brings a shimmer in our eyes.
yeah.
That's also my message to people. But
Absolutely.
like all Indian people, we all after the age of 50, we all get heart. Well, we all. So I got two strokes after the age of 50. Until the
Mm-hmm.
age of 50, you can do 12 things at the same time. Doesn't matter. Yeah, your body is strong, your mind is strong. But
Mm.
after the age of 50, you see a lot of Indians, especially in the diaspora and also in the Caribbean, we get how do you call diabetes too,
Yeah.
and we get heart attacks or we get
Yes.
strokes. And I got two strokes on the right side of my brain. So on the left side of my body, I'm paralyzed, but that's okay. The brain works and I can walk with a stick. So that's okay.
Okay.
I travel everywhere. I still do everything. I was this summer on holidays in Uzbekistan because I wanted to see the ancient Silk Road.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Excellent. Now, Ajit, thank you for sharing your life's journey. But we'll break this down. So we'll come back to Caribbean. So I understand you mentioned there are 2.5 million people of Indian origin in the Caribbean, and you mentioned, how your parents started in farming in Suriname.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember where did your parents come from in India?
Yes, Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
Most of the immigrants, we have the whole. We know all the ancestry. So we have it is from the city of Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh.
Oh, Bareilly. Okay. All right.
You
So
know
anybody
that
from Bareilly or Uttar Pradesh watching this, shout out to you.
they can have a look. So, so they came from Bareilly and then they moved by train to Kolkata,
Okay.
and then in Kolkata they took the boats to Suriname. But
Okay.
not all of the boats arrived. Some of the boats in the storm they ended up in Fiji or in South Africa. So some
Okay.
of the immigrants from UP
Wow.
ended up without knowing it in Fiji or
Yeah.
in South Africa.
Yeah. I mean,
But my
look at
parents ended up in
look
Suriname.
at the geographical distribution. Fiji is on the completely eastern side,
Yeah.
and halfway around the world is Suriname, and of course,
Yeah.
midway is South Africa. And how was it decided which family will go which part of the world? Right? I mean, did they even know where was the country on the map and where they were heading when they started?
Well, yeah, they know. They called it Sarnam, and because the British told them it is a country with a lot of land and with only a few people. Suriname
Okay.
is 5 times the size of Holland, but there are
Yeah.
only 500,000 people living there. So it is a lot of land, and it is very very cheap. So you can buy land very cheap. You can start a farm. You can start a plantation, and it is very fertile land, very very
Wow.
fertile.
And it's
That's why
still
they
the
got
most forested. It's the
it
most
is
forested country in the world, correct?
It's part of the Amazon rainforest, yes. And the coast is very, very fertile because
Yeah.
all the mud from the Amazon comes there. So it is very fertile. That's why the Dutch and also the British created a lot of plantations there. They had plantations for sugar, for rice, for tobacco,
Yeah.
for cocoa, because Suriname used to be a chocolate producer, but now it's not anymore. But Indians love chocolate.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone
Yeah.
watching now who wants to start a cocoa plantation in Suriname and make chocolate from there, go. It's very cheap.
Excellent. That's a good tip. Now, do you remember, Ajit, which year did your great grandparents started from India for Suriname?
It was, I think, I have it. It is in my biography somewhere. I have the exact year in my biography, but
Okay.
I don't know it by heart. I think it was around 18 in the 1890s.
1890s. Okay.
1890s, 1893,
Wow.
1894, something like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, that was the height of British power in India.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
and, yes, that was the height of British empire power across the world, and they could simply move people around across their commonwealth, as they would say.
Yeah, but they
Hmm.
did it. They moved Tamils to Sri Lanka, to the north of Sri Lanka. They
Yeah.
moved. They stole the Indian the Chinese tea plants, moved them
Yes.
to Darjeeling, and also moved them to Africa, to the colonies in Africa. And so
Yeah.
that's how the tea
Yeah.
industry started there.
Precisely.
Yeah, the height of British Empire. That all that happened.
Yeah.
That this is.
Very
But
interesting.
I
Very
am a
interesting.
man of forwardism, so I don't
Yeah.
think too much about the
Sure.
injustices of the past. I'm more
No,
about
no, precisely. I
tomorrow.
mean, for us as anthropologists who study civilization or society, it's just interesting to see how the world was shaped. So I'm coming from that angle as
Yeah,
well, Ajit.
yeah,
And tea
me
is a
too.
great example. Were it not for the British, we Indians in India would not be enjoying our cup of chai or cup of tea. You know?
Definitely, definitely, and thanks to the British, we speak English.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes,
But
indeed.
it is an interesting story because since the beginning of globalization, it is an interesting. Do you know that story? Up till the year 1400, 80% of the world's GDP came from India and China
Yes.
together.
I
Twenty
read that
percent,
in the Economist, the magazine. Yes,
yeah,
that's
and 20% was Africa, Europe, and the Americas.
yeah,
And then Asia started to decline, and the
yeah,
West started to go up. And
absolutely.
then at that time, Emperor Babur of India
Yeah,
wrote in his diary, what was it?
Baburnama.
Bad times create strong times. Okay, strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak
Yeah.
people create bad time. So that
Hmm.
is what's happening. So and that is,
Yeah.
and then in after 300-400 years, the
Yeah.
Mughals lost the empire to the British.
Precisely.
And the same is now
Precisely.
happening in the West. So it is
Yeah.
because now we are moving into a multipolar world order.
Yeah.
You can see it now. China is getting back to where it used to be.
Yeah.
India will also get back to where it used to be. So I'm very positive about that. So
Very
in the
positive.
multipolar
Yeah.
world order, the
Yeah.
US will have to share power with the BRICS countries. And I
Yeah.
think that will be very nice.
No, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, if you go beyond uh, 400, 500 years of European colonization, right? It was actually a very equitable world for the most part of time.
Definitely.
China,
But
India, the Ottoman Empire in the medieval times, or even if you go to the Roman Empire way back 2,000 years back, we Roman Empire used to trade with India,
yes,
and it was a very equitable world.
yeah, it was a multipolar world, but it's interesting. Since the beginning of modern globalization in the 1400s, the
Yeah.
world always had one global policeman. The first one was Spain. The
Okay.
second was the Netherlands. The Netherlands
Uh-huh.
created the first central bank in the world,
All
and the
right.
Netherlands created the first multinational in the world,
Yeah.
which was the United East Indian
That's
Companies.
right.
And then after the end of the Netherlands, because on the top of their power, all superpowers get corrupt,
Yeah.
decadent, and then so we got corrupt, decadent, and then the British took over.
Yeah.
And then after the end of British Empire, the Americans took over.
Yeah.
And now I think that the world has become too complicated for
Yes.
one global policeman to keep
Yeah.
law and order. So I
Yeah.
think we will have five together, 5 or 6 together. The
Precisely.
US together
Yeah.
with the BRICS countries.
The
So
BRICS country. Yeah.
they will together do it,
Mm.
and then I think we can have world peace, and
Yeah.
then I think we can end poverty also.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, coming back, we'll chronologically move, from Suriname to Netherlands and then discussing the future. But I'm so fascinated by, the Indian diaspora in Suriname, and I want to bring that to, that insights to our listeners here. So, coming back to Suriname, I want to reflect more on your growing years, right? So, as you were growing up, right, you mentioned your mother was Hindu, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah,
and your dad was Muslim, right? So,
but
they,
not practicing. He never
not
practiced. He was
practicing, right?
actually atheist.
Right,
But
got
officially
it.
he was Muslim, but he was actually atheist.
Got it. Got it. But for me, just imagining, different cultures, that just makes for a richer childhood, right? So here you are in Suriname where you have multiple ethnicities, you have
Yeah.
Chinese, you have people from Africa, you have people from India. So my
Yeah.
question to you is that how was it growing up, number one? Number two, how did how did people in Suriname remain in touch with Indianness? There was no internet back then, right? So
Well,
our
no,
culture.
There was
Our
no
music, our food.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, you see, it is very different. For example, in the island of Trinidad, the Indians left behind the Indian language. They don't speak
Okay.
Hindi anymore.
All
But the
right.
Indians in Suriname kept their language. So they kept the language from UP, the languages from Uttar Pradesh. But not all of them came from Uttar Pradesh. There were also Indian immigrants from Jaipur, also from other parts of India. And so
Yeah.
they mixed their Indian languages to one new language, also mixed with some Dutch words and some African words, and that
Okay.
is called Sanami Hindustani.
Can you
Sanami,
spell that for us? S-A.
that is
Uh,
a mix, Sarnami Hindustani.
so that's
That is
Satnami, Satnami.
Sarnami, and
Got
then
it.
Hindustani, Hindustani.
Got it.
And
Okay. Thank
Sanami
you.
Hindustani is 80% the language of Uttar Pradesh and 20% other languages. And
Okay.
that became their language. They have a radio station in that. They have television station in that. So that is their language. They speak it in their temples. They built their temples. They kept the religion. And but what is also interesting, because some of this of the Indian holidays struck a chord with the people of the other ethnic groups. Because, for example, Diwali is our festival of light, and they had Christmas. The Creoles, the people of African origin, had Christmas, and they said, "Well,
Mhm.
it is like our Christmas, so let's celebrate it all." So Diwali was celebrated by everybody because it was a festival of light, and everybody loves Pagua. If you go on YouTube and you look for and you say how is Holy Pagua celebrated in Suriname, you see a
Okay.
lot of video clips. And you see everybody's dancing and using the colored powder, and so it is blacks,
Oh.
it is blonde people, it's everybody. Everybody loves it, and the music is mix of Hindu music with African drums, and so it is very very fascinating. So
Yeah. Yeah.
and we, of course, also celebrated the holidays of the other ethnic groups. Like, for example, the 1st of July is to celebrate the end of slavery. Of course,
Okay.
we celebrated that well because thanks to the end of slavery, the
Yeah.
Indians could get to Suriname.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. That sounds like such a vibrant community to live
It is
in.
very vibrant, and our food became popular.
Okay.
Everybody in Suriname eats roti, everybody eats curry, everybody eats jalebi. So they became all national food. So that is interesting. If you have time, you could go there on holidays one day. It is
Yeah.
it is fantastic to see. It's a mixture of food from Indonesia, from Africa, from Holland, from everything.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. In fact, I want to ask about curries, or food. When you travel to India,
Yeah,
and you've been there more than 40 times, I believe, right?
yeah.
Um, how did you find the taste of, food curries in India different than
It is
curries in
it
Suriname?
is different because I think they use different ingredients than when it is made here. In Suriname, they also make their own curries. It is also tastes different, and in
Okay.
different regions. For in the Nikiri, the rice district, the curry which is made there, the masala which is made there, is totally different than from in the capital Paramaribo, and different from in Uttar Pradesh, and different from
Okay.
in India.
All right.
It is they use different ingredients. I love that. I love variety. I love food. That's why I'm a bit too fat, but I love food.
Love it, love it. I can. You're bringing the culture alive in this conversation, Ajit. One more question. Guyana is just next to Suriname. How is the
Yeah.
culture of Indian diaspora in Guyana different than that in Suriname? And can you make a difference between a Indian person from Suriname
Yeah.
and Guyana when you see
Well,
them
there
or talk
used
to
to
them?
be three Guyanas. You had
Okay.
British Guyana, which is now Guyana,
All right.
and with capital Georgetown. They
Okay.
had Dutch Guyana, which is now Suriname, with
All
capital
right.
Paramaribo, and you had French Guyana with capital Cayenne. French
Okay.
Guyana is still a province of France. They
Hmm.
speak French, they eat French food. It's all totally French.
Okay.
And British Guyana and Suriname, or the Dutch Guyana. At that time, British Guyana was Dutch too. It was called the colony of Demerara. And
Okay.
so at the beginning, the Indian diaspora in both countries was about the same. It was also from the same ships, also from both from Uttar Pradesh. But the Guyanese, a lot of them moved to Britain, but also to America. There are a lot of people from Guyana who are living in America. But Guyana is now very rich because they found a lot of oil. And Suriname now also just discovered oil. So I think Suriname will become rich after 2028.
Okay.
Yes. So then these two Guyana, so Guyana and Suriname, then will become the Qatar of South America.
Wow.
There's so
Yeah.
much oil that they found there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's the difference between the culture between Indians in Guyana and Indians in Suriname?
Well, in Guyana, you only have people of African origin and people of Indian origin. In
Okay.
Suriname, we have much more variety. We also have people from Indonesia, China. We have Jews. We have quite a lot. So but in Guyana, there is a bit more tension between the two big ethnic groups
Okay.
because the Indians were imported first to work on plantations, but now they move into business, in finance, in industry, etc. So they got a lot of big, big money. So that is a bit
I see.
ethnic tension between the two. In Suriname, that is much less. It's,
Right.
it's quite easy because Suriname's people say, look, it's too hot here to start a civil war, so let's enjoy the sun. There is enough for all of us.
Yeah. And that reminds me, you passionately talk about happiness and, enjoying life. Talk to us more about how the culture in Suriname can teach us on how to live.
Well, one of the things it can teach us is to enjoy just small happiness in life. Because
Hmm.
many people and have the ambition to get big ambitions, big happiness, the big things that make them happy, like a big house, a big car, much money on your bank account. But what is so interesting, and it's not only in Suriname, it's in all of Latin America, that also if people are poor, they still have big smile, they still enjoy the sun, children still play in the rain. Let's also enjoy the small happiness in life. That is also my message to the world. Let's also enjoy the small things that make us happy, like the sun on our face. So every day you get awake, be aware that your life is the ambition of millions of other people to lead your life. So be thankful, be happy and thankful that and enjoy it. Because if I compare it to the life of my ancestors in UP, and if you can see, so we did very well. So thanks to colonialism, we had now have a much better life. So I'm very thankful.
Hmm. Hmm. Coming back to Suriname, a lot of our audiences are from the Indian diaspora, from Australia, USA. Many are watching from India. Uh, Talk to them on why they should travel to Suriname and what they can see and experience in Suriname about the Indian diaspora, but also the country of Suriname.
Well, the country of Suriname it is part of the Amazon rainforest, which started in the Amazon from Brazil all the way to Suriname and Guyana. But in Suriname, it's much more accessible. So you can go by planes and you can go by boat until the deepest of the forest. And the rainforest is absolutely very calming, very soothing. And
Hmm.
the people who live in the forest also believe in the ghosts. There's a lot of nice animals, nice birds. So the nature is absolutely fantastic. It's very, very beautiful. And it is so interesting that it's so sparsely populated. And of course, in the coast, you have a lot of old Dutch colonial architecture, which looks a lot to like in the U.S. Because like in the old part of Washington, you also have a lot of Dutch colonial architecture. And I don't know if you're in Boston. Was Boston ever Dutch? New York was Dutch. So in
New York was Dutch.
New
Yes,
York
not
State, you
Boston.
can still see a lot of Dutch architecture.
Yes.
So that is
Yes.
interesting. So it's a mixture of European and wooden architecture. Paramaribo is the biggest wooden city on earth. It's all,
Wow.
even the cathedral is built of wood. It's all wood, wood, wood. It is, and what is especially interesting is that people enjoy life. They enjoy everything, the small things, and that is one thing you can learn. Here in Europe, a lot of people are depressed and
Yeah.
pessimistic about the future and so on.
Yeah.
If you want to get rid of your depression, go and have a look there in the Caribbean.
I love that. You know, seriously, like one should really think. What's been sold to us is, make money, or we talk about GDP of nations, but for example, Bhutan came up and talked about gross national happiness.
Yeah.
Beyond materialistic success. how happy are you really inside you
That's
as an
why we
individual,
wrote.
but
That's why
across the
we
nation?
wrote about the happy number. This is the Bhutan model
Yeah,
because let's try to become happy. And of course, yeah, you need a certain amount of money to become happy. So
yeah,
I collect my art. I need money for that, and of course for my diamonds, I also need some money. But
yeah, yeah,
and my doggy needs to eat, and I need to eat my rotis. So it is.
yeah.
But it
It's
is
a balance.
interesting
It's
that
a
when the
balance.
Indians from Suriname moved to Holland,
Hmm.
uh, the Indian food from Suriname like roti and bara became national dish here as well. So every Dutch
Hmm.
loves.
Hmm. Love it. Now, Ajit, I think we have reflected enough on Suriname. Let's move to Netherlands now. Talk to us about the Indian diaspora in Netherlands.
Well, the Netherlands is a very, very small country, but very fertile. So we have a lot of farmers. After America, after the US, Holland is the largest exporter of agricultural products in the world. And we have two groups of Indians here. We are with 17 million people now in Holland, 17, 18 million people.
Hmm.
And there are two groups of Indian immigrants. The ones that came from Suriname, that is about 500,000. And
Okay.
the other ones who came directly from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh.
Okay.
And most of them are working in IT. So
Hmm.
most of them are IT guys who work for our banks, for our financial industry, for our IT companies like IBM and Microsoft and everybody. So we have two groups of Indians. And for example, the group which came from India speaks Hindi, of course, and or Marathi, because a lot of come from Maharashtra, because Marathi actually has the same grammar as Dutch. So people from Maharashtra who speak Marathi learn Dutch within 3 months.
Interesting.
So that is
Okay.
fascinating. It's very fascinating. And these two groups are now starting to mingle with each other and also mingle with the Dutch, and it is nice. That is we go along very very good together. So I always come to the receptions at the Indian embassy, and so we celebrate Pagwa together, we celebrate Diwali together. So it is all.
Yeah. I mean, that's
It's
so
all
fascinating. In the middle of the world in Netherlands, Indians from India and Indians in Suriname come and meet together, and the
yes,
culture,
and have fun
just
together. Yeah.
assimilates together. That's so fascinating.
And we complain, of course, about each other's rotis and about each other's curries because we say, look, your curry is not as good as my curry.
That is amazing. I never thought it that way. That is great. In fact, I would want more Indians from India to
But
actually travel to
all these
Suriname.
IT guys, they come here alone. So they are
Yeah, yeah,
lonely. So they find it very nice to meet us because we
yeah,
are settled here already. We can
yeah.
help them to integrate, to find their way here. So that is,
Hmm.
we speak Dutch, so we can learn them some Dutch.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Now, let's move to your journey in India. Talk to me when you went to Uttar Pradesh, UP. I'm sure you went there. How did you
There is
feel
there is
connecting with your
actually
homeland?
there is actually a museum in Uttar Pradesh for
Okay.
the people who emigrated to Suriname.
All
It's a
right.
very small museum, so the people who watch now from UP, they probably know it. There's a small museum there to remember us, to
Mm-hmm.
remember the migration which started in the 1890s.
Oh, which city is that museum in?
I don't know, my friend. I don't know.
Okay. All right. But even this
Probably
information is useful.
Malay.
We'll try to Google this up.
Yeah, we can Google
So,
it up. Yes.
okay. So we can
There,
write.
there is a documentary on that museum on YouTube, so you can easily
Got
find
it.
it if you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll try to Google this and I'll try to put this information,
yeah.
in this timeline,
One,
so that our viewers can see this.
yeah.
Okay, excellent. But let's talk about you. When you went to Uttar Pradesh and you saw your people, your culture, how was your first feeling about it?
Well, I started, of course, in Delhi and Mumbai because and the first time I was in India was in the 1980s. And India at that time was very poor, so there were a lot of beggars and a lot of poor
Hmm.
people. And I thought, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm so glad that the British and the Dutch took us away because otherwise we would have ended very poor. But I already loved Delhi, I already loved Mumbai.
Hmm.
and because there were so vibrant cities, so very, and there were shops everybody was selling something, so even on the streets or in the shop or whatever. I love this entrepreneurship, and I love the smells, because the smells is just India has a very typical smell. It just like smells like the smell of home, with all the everything in the air, oil, curries, everything. It is. I really loved it. I really loved, and I
Yeah.
loved the buildings, because of course we went first to the museums and to the Taj Mahal and to the big temples, and it was fantastic. And
Hmm.
then I went to UP only much later, and so
Hmm.
then when I was, I think, in around the year 2000 or something like that.
Hmm.
And well, I found UP quite poor, but the people were very friendly, and they were interested in our story of, oh, are you from that family? Oh, there are still some cousins there and there and there and there. So that was very funny,
Yeah.
because
In fact,
my family name is Bakas. My mother's name was Sital, and they said, oh, there are whole streets of Sitals here. Look, you can go
okay.
there and there and there. Whole street. But I
Yeah.
remember I was in the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai, and
Yeah.
one of the masseurs there came from UP, and he said, oh, where are you from? I said, UP. And what is the name? I said, well, the Bakas, and my mother's name was Sital. Oh, he said, the whole streets of Sitals there and there and
Wow.
there and there. So it was very funny. So in the Taj Mahal Hotel in Mumbai, I discovered
Yeah.
that there were whole streets of my family members in UP.
Yeah. 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 You talked about the poverty in India in the 80s, right? So V.S. Naipaul had written a book called India, a Wounded Civilization.
Yeah,
Uh, India really suffered through colonization.
yeah,
We were the land of riches, as you mentioned in our
yes.
conversation, Ajit,
But
until 18th
India also
century.
suffered. India also suffered from the stupid socialism of the Nehrus and the Gandhi and
Yes.
the Nehru Gandhi dynasty. So I'm glad
Yeah,
that they are not in power anymore.
absolutely. I mean,
Because capital, if
we,
I see now the big roads, the infrastructure, for
yes,
example, in Mumbai, you have now modern roads, so you can travel a very short time within Mumbai. At that time, we were in
precisely.
traffic jams all the time.
Yeah,
Now it is modern. The airports are modern. The ports are modern. The infrastructure is better. There are modern trains. At that
yeah,
time, there were only ancient trains from the British times.
yeah.
They were only old. How do you call that car? That old British Morris. How did they call it? They called it the Ambassador.
Ambassador cars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and now you have modern cars everywhere. You have this.
yeah.
So I'm very very happy that India now moved forward.
Precisely. I mean, what I want to say is that the sea change that has happened from the license Raj era, right? Poverty to post liberalization India after 1991,
Yeah.
and now where infrastructure, new highways, new roads in Uttar Pradesh, for example, are being developed, the change is massive. In fact, when was the last time, Ajit, you went to India recently?
Before Corona.
Before Corona. Okay. All
That
right.
was
Okay.
before Corona. So I'm going there next July, because the first book is going to be published there. So I need to be there for promotion and for media.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I will be there next summer 2025.
Got it. Got it.
And then I will be back again in the December 2025. So because then
All right.
the first novel of my husband will be published there in English.
Excellent. I'm sure
It was
many
he
Indians
wrote.
are.
Do you
Uh-huh.
remember he wrote in Emperor Babur was gay, and he wrote openly gay, and he wrote about it in his diaries. And he had two harems, a male harem and a female harem.
Okay.
And my husband read that story. He read the diaries of the emperor. So he wrote a novel that plays in medieval India that is called The Male Harem. And The
Okay.
Male Harem was a bestseller in Holland. And now it's going to be published next year in Delhi by Rupa Publications.
Okay.
Because they said this is a story. Many Indians don't know it, that before the British came, both
Yeah.
in Hindu and Muslim communities in India, homosexuality was not an issue. It was a non-issue. You could live as you want. You could. It was no issue at all. It was the stupid British with the Victorian values
Hmm.
who ended the liberal attitudes of Indians against about homosexuality, and that's why and that's why he was so inspired by that. He said, "My God, what a fantastic country this was!" And you can also see it in the statues in the Khajuraho temples, and so all of them. You can see men and women having sex with each other, men with each other, women with each other, no problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and the
Absolutely.
Mughals too were very at the beginning. The Mughals were very very liberal about that.
Okay.
And Babur was really, he had his youth love. I was in Uzbekistan, and Uzbekistan was ruled by his great grandfather. And so you
Okay.
can find a lot of about Babur in Uzbekistan as well. And he had, as when he was 18, he fell in love with another guy, and that was the great love of his life. And everybody knows that story. Many
Hmm.
of the old classical Indian songs, the ghazals, were
Okay.
all about gay love. Many of them were gay love. They are written by gay men, written for another man. And
Hmm.
then later they became neutralized and whatever. But it is fantastic to see the culture of ancient India was so amazing. I really love that.
It's India has gone through so many transformations.
Right.
If you go to pre-Buddhist era to right from 0th century AD to 10th century AD before the Islam invasion, which happened
Yeah.
during 11th century, and that till the Mughal era and the British, the country just keeps walking through its own journey. And
Yeah.
it's there's so much of history in India. John Key, Johnkkeay, in his book The History of India, very well chronicles this entire journey of India. But
Okay.
coming back to you, this actually is a sorry.
I'm
Continue
going
your
to
thought.
order it.
Say that again.
I'm going to order to buy it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, this is a great segue in your life as an author. We reflected on Suriname, we reflected on Netherlands, your trip to India. But let's move to you as an author. When did you first become an author and write a book? And talk to us about your 43 books. Your literary journey. And how did you become a futurist and a trend watcher?
Well, already when I was on primary school, I could write very good because we had to write short stories and we had to write short stories. So then my teachers already told me, you have a talent, you are born with a pen in your hand, so you are going to become a writer. And then when I came to Holland, of course, during my study, I also had to write quite a lot. And then after that, my first books I wrote with my first husband, Sjoerd. So we wrote our first book together, and that was about how to manage a diverse, because at that time in the 1980s, Holland was just becoming a multicultural society, and a lot of managers are having trouble with that. How to manage a multicultural team, how to
Mhm.
manage a team with Dutch, with Indians, with blacks, with Chinese, with everything. And that was our first books was about how to manage diversity and how to deal with that.
Hmm.
And then because he was also a very good writer, so we wrote 3 or 4 books together. And after he died, for the first time I didn't write. And then 4 years after he died, a publisher contacted me and said, Ajit, do you want to write your first book about the mega trends which are going to reshape Holland? Because at that time in America, you had the book Mega Trends by John Naisbitt, and they
Mhm.
said, but it was very American. And he
Hmm.
said, so the publisher came to me and said, can you make a book, Mega Trends Netherlands, about
Hmm.
the typical trends which are going to reshape Holland in the next 20, 30 years? So, and then of course, the first 100,000 were sold, and then I started with, so that was about the big megatrends in healthcare, about aging, how to deal with aging population, how
Hmm.
to deal with the economy, how to deal with technology, and etc. So that was that. And then later, so I made books about the future of health, the future of food,
Mhm.
the future of finance, and all these other things, the future of oil, the future of oil, gas, and natural resources, because it is interesting to see how many natural resources Mother Earth is still hiding from us. For
Hmm.
example, a couple of years ago in Uganda, a
Hmm.
dirt poor country in Africa, where the dictator Idi Amin used to eat people, he was a cannibal, and sent all the Indian immigrants away. In
Mhm.
Uganda, now they discovered an enormous amount of gold. The same amount as the total amount of gold in the whole world has now been discovered there. So this
Hmm.
dirt poor country suddenly is now going to produce a lot of gold. Of course, they sold it all to the Chinese, and and so we also see it with space mining and with deep sea mining. The Japanese discovered a lot of lithium under the sea in front of their coast, And in Sweden also, a lot of new iron and new lithium is discovered also in the north of the country. So Mother Earth is hiding so many natural resources from us. So deep sea mining is going to become important, but also on all the in space, also space mining is also becoming very important because there is gold, diamonds, and everything else on other planets, and also on the asteroids flying around the Earth. So if India invests quite a lot in aerospace, like the Chinese are doing now, they can go for space mining and they can get everything from there as well.
Hmm, that's fascinating. In terms of natural resources, hopefully without polluting the environment, there is
Yeah,
so much
I hope
to
so.
do. I want to give an angle to talking future here. Let's talk about India, Indian diaspora, and the role India or Indians can play in a better world. Let me give some context. So, Indian diaspora is the largest diaspora in the world today, at more than 34 million people spread all
Are we
around the
more
world.
than the Chinese?
Yes, we are
Ah,
officially.
I
Officially,
didn't know that. That's
yeah,
news for
yeah.
me.
Number one, India as a nation, it's we talked about it. It's developing. It's playing a more prominent role in geopolitics. Now let's connect the dots and try to extrapolate the future. What role do you think Indians and Indian diaspora can play in the world and will play in the world going forward, according to your trend watching?
Well, I think the first is India can, with all its IT knowledge, can become an AI superpower. So an
Hmm.
AI superpower using combining AI with human intelligence, and that's one.
Hmm.
Second thing is a Dutch newspaper, the Dutch Financial Daily says if India and the Indian farmers mix their knowledge and their land with the knowledge of the Dutch farmers, India can become a food superpower as well, not only feeding their own country but also exporting to all of Asia.
Hmm.
So, but what India could, what I think is very interesting, because India has the tradition of Mahatma Gandhi and of creating things without violence. India also just resolved its border dispute with China without violence.
Yes.
So I think India can also become a peace superpower. Which
Hmm.
Norway is today. Norway is trying to create peace between Israel and the Palestinians to create everything. So you have all these. So why India? So I think maybe India can, in the tradition of Mahatma Gandhi, become a peace superpower, which
Yeah.
helps to solve battles and fightings all over the world, like and wars all over the world, and help people to bring more peace. Maybe that could be interesting.
Yeah. That's a fascinating word. Peace superpower.
Yeah,
Uh, you
why
know,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Often we associate,
Well, you
aggression,
usually
war with
you know
superpower.
that the Norwegians have the same. They want to be The Norwegians really invest in brokers of peace, but
Yeah.
Norway is very small, only 5 million people. But if
Yes.
India is now becoming a superpower as part of the BRICS, then in that BRICS coalition, you can become the peace superpower.
Absolutely. I always remind that the core tenet of Indianness is Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means the world is one family.
Yeah,
And truly, through tolerance, through love, non-violence, compassion, we can bring the world together. Hmm.
that's what my idea is. Yes,
Yeah.
and I also think if people also meditate and practice yoga a bit more, they will also become a bit more peaceful.
It's more peaceful.
I practice meditation and yoga all the time. That is part of my Indian heritage. But in
Hmm.
Holland, many people here practice yoga, many practice meditation. Because we are a post-religious society.
Yeah.
Christianity is now on the way out here.
Hmm.
So, but in post-Christian Holland, meditation and yoga became part of our spiritual tradition, and that is very interesting. It makes people calm. It helps us to deal with stress and anxiety, so that's fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So,
But Rahul, some
mhm.
trends are forever. One is men love war and women love soldiers.
Hmm.
So I'm afraid we will not never enter a world which is totally at peace, but we can make it a bit less violent.
I think if those who do not quote unquote fight for peace, meaning advocate for peace, uh,
Advocates for peace.
right? The world will be much more chaotic. I mean, it's the responsibility of democracy or those who espouse non-tolerance to also do their part. In the trend you mentioned about men cause wars and women want soldiers, there'll be different kinds of people, but those who want peace and tolerance should speak up in the
Definitely.
right way that they have in the past.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what post-Renaissance philosophies and societies taught us, which is hey, question things around you and do your part intellectually as well. You
I
know,
will try.
writers and authors do they play a very big role in that endeavor, I think.
Thank you, Rahul. I hope to inspire people to think,
Yeah,
to use the opportunities to think in forwardism.
absolutely, absolutely. I want to give more airtime to your book about India. I know you mentioned about it, but that's a natural transition.
It is
Let's
called,
let's let,
it will
yes,
be called hashtag forwardism.
forwardism. Got it.
For hashtag forwardism.
Hashtag forwardism. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask this question. Why should an
I have the
Indian,
cover already, so I can send you the cover and then
please do, I'm going to put it
you can
out here. Now,
yeah.
I want to ask this question. Remember we spoke about information overload. Everybody has an Instagram, everybody has, YouTube. Why should an average Indian in Mumbai or in Kolkata or in Delhi or Chennai or Bangalore read it, right? Uh, what will
Because
they get out of it?
it gives them ideas, it helps them to connect dots which they probably did not connect before, and gives them ideas of how to better their life, how to use the trends to get a better life.
Love it, right? So disconnect, reflect, and make a better life. Hmm,
Yeah, definitely.
got it. When are you releasing this book, Ajit?
It will be released in June next year, June
June next year.
2025.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Wonderful. Is there anything else you would want to say to the global Indian diaspora and Indians from India?
Well, I would just say enjoy your portable identity, because when we immigrate, we take our portable identity with us, and then we find our new place and our new home. Enjoy it, because it is such a rich heritage that we have. Enjoy
Yeah.
it, and just enjoy also the small happiness in life.
Hmm.
Not only work, work, work,
Yeah.
also enjoy life, because many people die at the age of 20 and are buried at the age of 80. So don't be with someone like that. Enjoy life, enjoy your money, and spend
Very deep.
it.
Ajit, we will end this discussion with some fun rapid fire questions that's going to bring some more insights for our listeners here. Are you
Okay,
ready? All right.
yeah, I'm ready.
Excellent. So, your first question is your favorite food in Suriname.
Roti, roti with curry chicken.
All right. Roti with curry chicken. All right, cool. We'll try that. Next, your favorite food in Netherlands.
Hutspot, that is the Dutch way of mixing potatoes with sauerkraut and meat. That is also very nice. That's the Dutch national food. That's nice.
And can you spell it for us? How is it spelled?
Hutspot, Hutspot.
Got it. That'll help
Yes,
us Google it.
yeah.
Got it. Excellent. Next one, a person from Indian community in Suriname that the world should know about.
In Suriname now that the world should know about.
Or historic past, anybody.
Oh, historic past. Well, there was a leader, I forgot his name. There was the plantation owners were not always very friendly towards the Indians. They treated the Indians a bit like they did with the African slaves before. They lived in the same houses as the same dwellings as the African slaves and so. And they not always were paid the money that was promised to them. And there was one Indian leader who revolted against the plantation owner in the early 1900s. And that guy, because he led the revolution against the rebellion against the plantation owner, he got a better life for all the Indian immigrants there.
What's his
I
name?
forgot his name, but he was this. I will look it up for you,
All right. Okay. Okay. Next question. A
because of
person of
course you should know. That is one of the things. you should in India, a lot of the poor people on the farms accept what the farm owner tells them, accept what the Maharaja
Yeah.
tells them. And in Suriname, there was this one guy who said, "No, we're not going to accept it.
Yeah.
We want to get our rights." And that's interesting that happened. That is,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll look up
Yeah.
his name.
Excellent. It's leaders like them who bring change happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Next question. An Indian origin person in Netherlands, past or now, that the world should know about.
Well, I said V.S. Naipaul, but he, of course, he was also from the Caribbean. But I love his book India: A Million Mutinies Now. That
Hmm.
is, he said he wrote that, I think, in the 1980s or 1990s. But that is, I think that book everybody should read, because that is about how many would happen. The same about the people from the low caste against the high caste, of the rural people and city people, and all, and how we should all be able to manage all of this. Because you see, the whole world is restless now. So
Yeah.
we should try to prevent, like we see now in America, you have your elections next week. So and it is, I think, if I have been in America during earlier elections, but it's for the first time that I see people are just from the two parties are just hating each other. I think, oh,
Yeah.
that is not what democracy is about. Democracy is about like a peaceful transition of power
Hmm.
from one to the other. But so that
Well
is,
said. Hmm.
and so I hope that India can stick and always have a peaceful elections, peaceful transition of powers from one government to the next. And that is
Absolutely. Well, your next question, your favorite Bollywood movie.
my favorite. That is a very old one. The song was called "The Maridam" from the 1970s. The Maridam was, everybody in Suriname went to it. The blacks, the Chinese, the Dutch, everybody. For the Maridam played for
Dum
2 years.
Maru Dum. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Dum
yeah,
Maru Dum.
yeah.
Okay,
For 2 years it played in the cinemas. And it is
got it.
still, because when I still hear that song, it is still, oh yeah, that was the first Bollywood movie I ever saw, and that is still in my.
Excellent. And your forefathers came from Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh. Have you heard the song Jhumka Gira Re Bareilly Ke Bazaar Mein, which means your earrings have fallen
No?
in the markets of Bareilly. It's a beautiful song. I'm going to send this to you.
Okay, yes, please do.
Yes, yes, indeed. All right, lovely. Now, finally, a place in India that Indians from Suriname or Netherlands should absolutely travel to.
A place in India, I would say Kochi, because
Ah,
Kochi used to be in a Dutch city. So there is also still Dutch architecture, Dutch fortifications, and Kochi is very nice, very, very nice. So it also has that. And the one of the novels of my husband is situated in Kochi. It is called The Reptile Funds. That will be published also by Rupa Books in India. But I really
got it.
love Kochi. Kochi
Got
in
it.
Kerala is fantastic.
Excellent. Well, Ajit, it was such a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah.
Your core message of happiness, celebrating the smaller, simpler things in life,
Yeah,
balancing things
my
out.
mother learns me, smile to the world and the world will smile back. And that's true.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. It was such a delight to have you with us. And thank you
It
for
was
reflecting
also a delight
on,
for me, Rahul. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
absolutely, thank you for reflecting on the diaspora in Suriname, the diaspora in Netherlands. I think our audiences would have got some idea of how Indians live there. They live there now, and hopefully they're excited to travel and explore these cultures.
Yeah.
Ajit,
And there is
thank you so much.
one Indian guy from Suriname
Uh-huh.
who now lives in Holland that you should get to know. His name is Prim Radakishan. Prim is a very good friend of mine. He used to make television programs and radio programs in Holland. He is
Okay.
a very authentic thinker.
Oh, wow.
He advises the president of Suriname now, and he's a very authentic thinker. And it is, if he ever comes to India, then that is one of the guys you should also interview him probably.
Absolutely. We look forward to. We look forward to.
I
There
will.
is,
I will
you
send you.
know,
I will send you too.
lovely. Thank you so much. Ajit, overall, thank you so much. And we wish you all the best for more literary work and your book. We're looking forward to reading that in the
Yeah, but
future.
and this my biography you can order at Amazon as ebook or paper book, so that is very easy. You can easily order it,
Yeah, for the
and you can.
listeners, it's called Joy,
It's
Joy.
it's called
Uh,
Jai, the lessons of a life artist.
Joy, the
Then
lessons of a life
you
artist.
can get it Amazon, and this one, the Happy No Me, you can also
Excellent.
get it Amazon as an ebook
Yeah,
or a paper book. So you can.
excellent. Looking for a more happier life. All right, signing off. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you.